The fluorescent lights hum overhead, casting a sterile, pale glow on the linoleum floor. You are standing in a line that seems to stretch on forever, clutching a folder of documents you are fairly certain contains everything you need. You have done this a dozen times before. For decades, the ritual has been the same. You wait your turn, you step up to the counter, you take a quick vision test where you read a few letters off a backlit chart, you smile for a photo, and you walk out with a renewed license valid for another 5 or 8 years. It is a chore, certainly, but a predictable one. It is a routine part of adult life in the United States. But this time, as you finally reach the front of the line and hand over your paperwork, the rhythm breaks. The clerk does not just glance at your application, they scrutinize it. They ask a question you were not prepared for. They hand you a form you have never seen. Suddenly, the routine evaporates. You are told that the standard vision test is no longer sufficient for your age bracket. You are informed that because of a recent policy shift, your online renewal eligibility has been revoked. Or, perhaps most jarring of all, you are handed a medical evaluation document and told that before the state can legally allow you to drive home, a physician must certify your cognitive and physical aptitude. What was supposed to be a 20-minute errand has transformed into a bureaucratic labyrinth. You leave the Department of Motor Vehicles not with a renewed piece of plastic that guarantees your freedom of movement, but with a temporary extension, or worse, a rejection notice, and a sinking feeling of confusion. You ask yourself, when did the rules change? Why didn't anyone warn me? The reality is that something fundamental has shifted in the American transportation landscape, but it has happened quietly, buried in legislative updates and administrative policy manuals, rather than announced on the nightly news. Across the United States, a wave of new regulations is crashing down on drivers, specifically targeting those over the age of 65. These are not minor clerical adjustments. These are systemic changes to how the government evaluates risk, liability, and public safety on the roads. The problem is not the rules themselves, it is the silence surrounding them. Most drivers only discover these new barriers when they are already standing at the counter, under pressure, with people waiting behind them and a clerk waiting for an answer they do not have. Welcome back to U.S. Green Card Signal. I am your host, Edward. Today, we are going to navigate this complex new reality together. This channel is dedicated to helping you understand the intricacies of life, residency, and documentation in the United States. And few documents are as critical to your daily existence as your driver's license. Whether you are a citizen, a green card holder, or a resident navigating the system, losing your driving privileges is a direct threat to your independence. In this comprehensive report, we are going to dismantle the 3 major pillars of this new regulatory framework. We will explain why state agencies are suddenly demanding more from older drivers. We will break down the specific medical and visual metrics they are now using, and we will provide you with a bulletproof strategy to ensure that you do not get caught in the machinery of bureaucracy. Before we dive into the specific mechanics of the new vision tests or the medical certification forms, we must establish the context. Why is this happening now? To the average observer, these changes can feel arbitrary or even discriminatory. It can feel like the system is targeting older adults unfairly. However, to understand the shift, we have to look at the data that transportation agencies are analyzing. Over the last decade, traffic safety administrations have identified a statistical divergence. While overall accident rates have fluctuated, there has been a specific uptick in incidents involving drivers over the age of 75. These incidents rarely involve reckless behavior like speeding or driving under the influence. Instead, they are often characterized by issues related to perception, failure to yield the right-of-way, difficulty merging into high-speed traffic, or accidents occurring at intersections during low-light conditions. From a policy perspective, the state is attempting to balance civil liberties with public safety. The goal, ostensibly, is not to strip capable drivers of their licenses, but to identify the small percentage of drivers whose declining faculties pose a significant risk before a catastrophic event occurs. This shift represents a move from passive renewal, where you simply pay a fee and stay legal, to active assessment, where you must prove your capability at regular intervals. Understanding this philosophy is the key to navigating the new system. When you walk into the DMV now, you are not just a customer buying a service. You are a subject being evaluated. This brings us to the first and perhaps most immediate hurdle that is catching thousands of drivers off guard: the enhanced vision screening protocols. For as long as most of us can remember, the vision test at the DMV was a formality. You looked into a machine, you read a line of letters that got progressively smaller, and if you could read the fourth or fifth line, you passed. That standard, known as static visual acuity, measures how well you can see a non-moving object while you are also standing still. It is a useful metric for reading street signs, but it is a terrible metric for driving a vehicle at 65 miles per hour. The new protocols being rolled out in various states recognize that driving is a dynamic visual task. It requires more than just clarity, it requires awareness. Therefore, the new screenings for drivers over 65 are digging much deeper. The first major addition is the testing of peripheral fields. This measures your side vision, how much you can see out of the corner of your eye while looking straight ahead. In a driving scenario, this is what allows you to sense a car in your blind spot, a pedestrian stepping off a curb, or a cyclist merging from a bike lane. As we age, our peripheral field naturally narrows. The DMV is now setting strict degrees of required field of view. If your vision creates a tunnel effect, you may be flagged. However, the most challenging new metric for many is contrast sensitivity. This is distinct from acuity. You might have 20/20 vision, meaning you can read small letters clearly black on white. But contrast sensitivity measures your ability to distinguish an object from its background when the lighting is poor or when the colors are similar. Think of a gray car driving on a gray road during a rainy twilight, or a pedestrian in dark clothing crossing a street at night. This ability degrades significantly with age, often due to cataracts or changes in the retina. Standard eye charts do not test for this. The new electronic screening devices being installed in DMV offices do. They simulate low-contrast environments to see if your eyes can still pick out the necessary details to drive safely in less than ideal conditions. The consequences of failing this enhanced screening are immediate and often frustrating. In the past, a kind clerk might let you try again or squint a little harder. Now, the systems are digital and pass or fail. If you do not meet the threshold, the DMV clerk cannot override the system. You will be issued a conditional rejection. This means you are handed a specific form, often spanning several pages, that you must take to a licensed ophthalmologist or optometrist. You then have to schedule an exam, pay for it out of pocket or through insurance, have the doctor conduct a full dilation and retinal assessment, and have them sign off on your ability to drive. Only then can you return to the DMV to finish your renewal. This process can add weeks to your timeline. If your license expires during that window, you are legally grounded. The strategic solution here is simple, but requires foresight. Do not let the DMV be the place where you find out your prescription has changed. If you are over 60 and your license is up for renewal within the next 6 months, schedule a comprehensive eye exam with your private doctor first. Be explicit with them. Tell them, I need to renew my license and I want to check my peripheral vision and contrast sensitivity. If there is a deficit, you can get updated glasses, treat the cataract, or manage the condition before you are standing in front of a government official. Walking into the DMV with a current passing vision report from your specialist can often bypass the state screening entirely, depending on local laws. It is the difference between a smooth transaction and a bureaucratic nightmare. While the vision test is a physiological hurdle, the second major change is procedural, and in many ways, it is even more disruptive. We are witnessing the systematic elimination of remote renewal options for senior drivers. For the past 2 decades, the trend in government services has been digitization. We have been encouraged to do everything online, pay taxes, register vehicles, and renew licenses. It was efficient and convenient. But for drivers reaching specific age milestones, often 70, 75, or 80 depending on the state, that digital door is being slammed shut. States are increasingly mandating in-person only renewals for seniors. The logic is that an online form cannot assess physical frailty, cognitive confusion, or visible health decline. They want eyes on you. This requirement forces older adults to physically travel to a DMV office, often standing in lines for extended periods, which can be physically taxing in itself. But the frequency is also increasing. While a younger driver might get a license valid for 8 or 10 years, seniors are increasingly seeing those intervals shorten to 4 years or even 2 years. This means the hassle is not a once-a-decade event. It becomes a recurring burden. There is a secondary critical layer to the in-person requirement that ties directly into the mission of this channel: U.S. residency and identification standards. We are currently in the final transition phase toward the Real ID Act implementation. The federal government has set strict standards for identification that allows you to board domestic flights or enter federal buildings. Because the driver's license is the primary de facto ID card in the United States, DMVs have become the enforcers of this federal policy. When you are forced to renew in person, you are often required to re-verify your identity and residency, even if you have lived in the same house for 40 years. This is where the paperwork trap catches so many people. You might assume that because you are already in the system, you just need your old license. That is a dangerous assumption. Under the new strict guidelines, you may need to present a birth certificate or valid passport, a social security card, not just the number, but the physical card, and 2 separate proofs of physical residency, such as utility bills or bank statements dated within the last 60 days. If your name has changed due to marriage or divorce, you need the certified legal documents connecting those names. For older women especially, who may have changed names decades ago, locating a certified marriage certificate from 1975 can be a significant hurdle. Furthermore, there is a hidden test happening during these in-person visits. DMV counterstaff are being trained in informal observation techniques. They are not doctors, but they are the first line of defense in the state's eyes. From the moment your number is called, you are being observed. How long does it take you to stand up? Do you shuffle or struggle with balance as you walk to the counter? Do you have tremors in your hands when you sign the keypad? Do you struggle to hear the clerk or seem confused by simple instructions? If a clerk observes significant physical frailty or cognitive confusion, they have the legal authority and, in some cases, the mandate to flag your file for a re-examination. This is an administrative hold that triggers a requirement for a formal road test or a medical review. It can happen instantly. You could walk in expecting to pay a $30 renewal fee and walk out with a notice that your license is suspended pending a driving skills test. This is why preparation is not just about documents. It is about presentation. When you go to the DMV, you need to be rested, alert, and organized. Fumbling through a messy purse or wallet, asking the clerk to repeat things 5 times, or complaining aggressively about the wait can all be interpreted as signs of decline. It is unfair, but it is the reality of the current assessment culture. This brings us to the third and arguably the most intrusive pillar of the new regulations, the medical certification requirement. This is the rule that is fundamentally altering the relationship between drivers, their doctors, and the state. Historically, the DMV relied on self-reporting. You would fill out a form asking, "Do you have any medical conditions that affect your driving?" And most people, believing they were fine, would simply check no. That honor system is being dismantled. States are increasingly requiring a medical report form, often called a DL-51 or similar, to be completed by a physician for drivers over a certain age or those with specific medical histories. This shifts the burden of liability from the driver to the doctor. The form asks specific probing questions about diagnoses that directly impact vehicle operation. They are looking for loss of consciousness disorders, which includes epilepsy but also unexplained fainting spells. They are looking for cardiovascular instability. If you have a pacemaker or a history of arrhythmia, the state wants to know if it is stable. Perhaps the most scrutinized category right now is metabolic diseases, specifically diabetes. If you are insulin dependent, the risk of hypoglycemia, low blood sugar behind the wheel, is a major concern for traffic safety regulators. The state may require your doctor to certify that your A1C levels are controlled and that you have not had a low episode in the last 6 to 12 months. If you have, your license could be restricted or denied. Sleep apnea is another condition under the microscope. If you have a diagnosis of obstructive sleep apnea but are not compliant with your CPAP machine treatment, a doctor may be hesitant to sign a form saying you are safe to drive, knowing that drowsy driving is a leading cause of fatalities. Then there is the cognitive component. Doctors are being asked to evaluate patients for signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, or general cognitive impairment. This is an incredibly sensitive area. A doctor who signs a form certifying a patient is safe to drive, only for that patient to later confuse the gas for the brake and drive into a storefront, faces potential legal liability and malpractice scrutiny. As a result, physicians are becoming much more conservative. They are less likely to do a favor for a long-time patient and more likely to request a formal driving evaluation by an occupational therapist. This medical clearance process creates a catch-22 for many seniors. You need a car to get to your doctor's appointments, but you need your doctor's permission to drive the car. If your doctor hesitates, do not react with anger. Understand the position they are in. Instead, ask for a path forward. If they are concerned about your reaction time, ask if working with a driver rehabilitation specialist, CDRS, could help. These are professionals who can test your skills and sometimes recommend vehicle modifications, like larger mirrors or hand controls, that satisfy the state's safety requirements while keeping you mobile. It is crucial to understand that the United States does not have a single, unified Department of Motor Vehicles. We have 50 separate states plus territories, each with its own legislature and its own motor vehicle code. This creates a patchwork of regulations that can be incredibly confusing. In Arizona, a license is valid until age 65 without renewal, but then the rules tighten rapidly. In California, drivers 70 and older must renew in person and take a knowledge test. In Illinois, drivers age 75 and over must take a road test, an actual behind-the-wheel exam, every single time they renew. This variation is why neighborhood gossip is the worst source of information. You might have a friend who lives across the state line or a cousin in Florida who says, "Oh, I just renewed online, it was easy." Their experience has absolutely no bearing on your legal requirements. Relying on anecdotal advice is the fastest way to find yourself non-compliant. You must verify the rules for your specific jurisdiction and your specific age bracket. The sheer variance in these laws highlights why channels like U.S. Green Card Signal exist, to cut through the noise and provide clarity on documentation and residency requirements that affect your life in America. So, how do you navigate this minefield? How do you ensure that you are not one of the thousands of people rejected at the counter this year? We need to build a strategic action plan. This isn't just about advice, it's about a checklist for survival in the modern bureaucratic landscape. Step 1 is preemptive intelligence. Do not wait for the renewal notice to arrive in the mail. State mail systems are notoriously slow, and sometimes notices get lost. On your 64th, 69th, or 74th birthday, whatever the milestone is in your state, go to the official DMV website. Do not use third-party sites that charge fees. Go to the .gov source. Search specifically for senior driver renewal requirements. Look for the digital version of the driver's handbook. Laws change annually. The test you took 40 years ago is not the test you will take today. Spending 2 hours reviewing current road signs and right-of-way laws can save you the embarrassment of failing a written knowledge test. Step 2 is documentation aggregation. Treat this like a military operation or a tax audit. Purchase a dedicated folder. In that folder, place your current license. Locate your original certified birth certificate, not a photocopy. If you are a naturalized citizen, find your certificate of naturalization. If you are a green card holder, ensure your permanent resident card is valid and not expiring soon. Locate your social security card. Then, gather your residency proofs. The DMV is strict about dates. A utility bill from 6 months ago is trash. It needs to be recent, usually within 30 to 60 days. If you receive bank statements online, print them out. Having this folder ready effectively armors you against the most common reason for rejection: missing paperwork. Step 3 is the medical pre-check. If you have any chronic conditions, diabetes, heart disease, glaucoma, sleep apnea, schedule an appointment with your managing specialist 3 months before your license expires. Be proactive. Say to them, "My license renewal is coming up. Is there anything in my chart that would prevent you from signing a state medical form if asked?" Having this conversation early allows you to address issues. Maybe you need to adjust your medication to stabilize your blood sugar. Maybe you need cataract surgery. Doing this on your own timeline is infinitely better than trying to rush a medical procedure because the DMV has given you a 30-day deadline. Step 4 is strategic scheduling. If you are required to go in person, timing is everything. Avoid the end of the month, as that is when everyone whose license is expiring rushes in. Avoid Mondays and Fridays. Midweek, mid-morning, around 10 a.m., is often the golden hour for DMV wait times. If your state offers appointments, book one. Do not rely on walk-in service if you can avoid it. Having an appointment not only reduces your wait time, but also signals to the clerk that you are organized and tech-savvy enough to navigate the booking system, which creates a positive first impression. Now we need to address the elephant in the room. We need to talk about the emotional weight of this process. It is easy to get lost in the forms and the vision tests and forget why this feels so heavy. For most Americans, the driver's license is not just a permit. It is the ultimate symbol of adult independence. It is the ability to go to the grocery store without asking for a ride. It is the ability to visit grandchildren, go to church, or just take a drive to clear your head. The threat of losing that license feels like a threat to your very identity. It feels like the world is shrinking. When you encounter these new, stricter rules, it is natural to feel defensive. You might think, "I have been driving since the Eisenhower administration. I have never had an accident. Why am I being treated like a child?" That anger is valid, but it is also important to reframe the situation. These laws are not designed to punish you for aging. They are designed to protect you from the physical reality of aging. The roads today are faster, more congested, and more aggressive than they were 30 years ago. The vehicles are larger and more complex. Driving is a shared social contract. We agree to follow the rules to keep each other safe. As our physical capabilities change, our contribution to that safety contract has to be reevaluated. If the vision test reveals you can't see the edges of the road at night, that is not a judgment on your character. It is a physics problem. And knowing that information allows you to adapt. Maybe the solution isn't stop driving. Maybe the solution is stop driving at night or avoid the highway. These are compromises that keep you mobile while keeping you and the young family in the car next to you safe. There is also a burden here on families. If you are watching this and you have a parent or grandparent approaching this age, do not leave them to navigate this alone. The digital divide is real. Navigating a complex state website to upload documents or schedule an appointment can be overwhelming for someone who isn't a digital native. Offer to help them organize that folder. Offer to drive them to the DMV so they aren't stressed about parking before they even get inside. Be the ally in their corner, not the critic. Furthermore, we must acknowledge the broader implications for non-citizens. For green card holders and visa holders, the driver's license is often the primary link to state legitimacy. In many states, the expiration of your driver's license is tied to the expiration of your legal presence documents. If your green card is expiring, your license expires with it. This creates a double layer of bureaucracy. You must navigate the USCIS renewal process and the DMV renewal process simultaneously. The new strict rules for seniors apply to you as well, adding a third layer of complexity. This is why staying subscribed to US Green Card Signal is vital. We help you see how these different bureaucratic systems intersect so you don't get caught in the gap between them. Thank you for joining me on US Green Card Signal. I'm Edward. My goal is to keep you informed, compliant, and mobile in this country. If this breakdown helped you understand the hurdles ahead, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Preparation is the best protection we have. Stay safe, stay organized, and I will see you in the next update.